annual celebration of all things creative, and we are marking it with our talk this evening. We have a few items to cover before we get going. We always begin and end with gratitude, so as usual, I will express our deepest to Adam, to Dave, to Heather, and to the Buffalo Rose for hosting us in such fine form. Thank you. This is one of the only times you can just walk in this place without buying a ticket or paying a cover or anything like it, and that's just because it's part of our community and it's a real meeting place. And we hope you continue to come and join us here for Golden Bear Talks, and we hope that maybe you consider buying a ticket to one of their shows as well at some point, because it's a real beautiful venue and we are very fortunate to share it. We also are grateful to goldentoday.com for always telling us what's going on around town and for always promoting our events in particular. The editor of Golden Today is not currently with us this evening. She's on a well-deserved vacation, but Barb Warden is a member of our team and a valued member of our community, so we are very grateful to Barb and for all the work she does. While I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our little team, our meager little humble team, because the rest of us are around and they're in the house. So over here in front of me, we got here Dr. Jim Clausen. He's on the AV, and he's also the Deputy Chief of Mission to our beer ambassador over here, Frank Laha. Next to him, Becky Bryce, head of everything that nobody else knows how to do. On the soundboard, Bart Sheldrake. He's backstage guy. He's a little bit shy. My name is Whitney Painter, and that is our group. That's just a volunteer effort that we kind of get together and figure out some beers and figure out some topics, and somehow it all comes together. And we're really unable to do that without your conviviality brought to the equation. So thank you very much for being our community. We are so grateful for all of you. If you are thinking about how you could possibly have this much conviviality in your daily life, there is a way, and it's called buy one of our pint glasses and take it home with you. It's so much fun. You can drink coffee out of it. I do on a regular basis, as well as beer, of course. They're available at the bar. There's a little QR code there. Should you want one, just grab it and snap the code and go about your business and pour your coffee in it as you will. And with that, we're going to move on to some of our programming. We have some brewers in the house tonight, for which we're always grateful. Ryan is here from Brews Beers. I've seen him somewhere. One of our best benefactors. Also, Charlie Sturdivant. He is the founder of Golden City Brewery. He is going to come up here and talk to you a little bit about these beers and what else is going on. He's the man right here in the cool hat. Charlie, come on up.
Well, it's good to be back again. Thanks for having me, and thanks for supporting our brewery. I think you guys are probably curious about what's going on with our brewery. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah? Well, maybe I'll tell you at the end of the talk. No, we're still living there. We had one deal that fell through, and another one that was a low-ball offer, and we've got several others that are looking at the place, but no offers from there. But we're making money. We're doing fine. We've got a good support from the city, the citizens, all of you guys. I thank you all for helping us out over the years. It's been 33 years now that we started this brewery. So I guess I've been a brewer, professional brewer, for 33 years. And my son has also, because when I would brew, when we first started, and Janine was off at work, I'd take him out into the brewery with me and set him on the bags of grain and make him sit there while he watched me work. So he's been learning this business since he was 3 years old, and now he's the master brewer. He got his degree at Metro State in, what was it, chemical, whatever, anyway, chemistry and biology combined. So he really knows what he's doing with some of these beers. This black IPA is his creation. And if I'd have been doing a black IPA, I'd have probably just used some black patent malt, which has been around forever. He used something called a dark carafa malt, which isn't nearly as harsh as the black patent that I would make. And so he's made a really, an easier beer to approach, even though it is high alcohol and high IBUs, the international bittering units, a lot of hops in that beer. But I'm not a hop head. I'm a malt head. So I got myself a glass of Vienna lager. And that is similar to Pilsner. It's Vienna has really soft water like Pilsen in the Czech Republic. And so you can add a lot of hops to it, but the Vienna lager is a lower hopped beer and slightly maltier than a Pilsner if you're familiar with that style. And one of my favorites. The true Czech Pilsner is my all-time favorite. High hops, but gently carried with the soft water. So anyway, those are the two beers. And you get the history of my son. I mean, not the total history, but he's been brewing for us since 2014. So he's got, 12 years under his belt now. Anyway, thank you for having me. Thank you for supporting the brewery, and I love you all. Thank you.
We have a special announcement. It requires that those who have a beer hoist it in the air. It's a birthday toast to Shirley Ryder over here, who is sharing her birthday with us. She's so remarkable. I'm pretty sure she has a long list of very impressive accomplishments in life, but the ones with which I'm familiar are a couple of her amazing daughters, who are some of my favorite people. The aforementioned Becky Bryce and her sister Christy, who's going to come up here and talk about Golden's Arts and Culture Commission and tonight's speaker. So here we go, Christy Bryce, let's have it. About a new piece of art that we'll have in our city. One of the marks of a thriving town is a thriving arts and culture scene, and we have that here in Golden. To continue the healthy and growing network, we are fortunate to have support from our City Council and Mayor in the form of the Golden Arts and Culture Commission, which I will refer to as the ACC. I serve as a commissioner on the ACC. I don't think anybody else is here who's a commissioner. If there is, can you raise your hand? Okay, just me. Made up of 9 community members from a variety of interests and backgrounds, the ACC works closely with artists, cultural organizations, city departments, and local partners to strengthen creative opportunities and support cultural institutions in our city. There are 3 broad cultural areas that the ACC is responsible for. One is the Arts and Culture Grants Program, which administers grants to support nonprofit arts and culture organizations. Last year, the recipients included the Rocky Mountain Quilt Museum, Golden Makers, and Stories Worth Telling, among many others. The second entity the ACC supports is the Golden History Museum, which preserves and shares Golden history. And the third area we steward is the Art in Public Places program,
which creates and maintains the city's increasingly diverse public art collection. Some examples of pieces in the city's collection include the mural Colorado Wildflowers at 19th and Washington, the new sculpture Yucca Pod Seeds, located in the Triangle Park at the junction of East Street and South Golden Road, the artist-designed bike racks between Foothills Art Center and Miners Alley Playhouse, and the stately and well-loved bronze buffalo, the Monarch, which you most likely passed as you entered the Buffalo Road. Tonight we look forward to hearing from one of the talented artists whose public art will be added to the collection when it is installed in our City of Golden municipal building that's being built. Josh Wiener has been creating public art for more than 20 years, and his public sculptures can be found around the country. He designs, fabricates, and installs all of his own work. His studio is located in Boulder, and it is equipped for any size project. In this talk, he will discuss his site-specific artwork focused on creating an experience in the space. Inherent in his artistic perspective are his background, interests, ambitions, and the way he integrates these into the work he creates for cities across the country, and now ours. Please welcome Josh Wiener to Golden Beer Talks.
Thank you for having me. I am delighted to be becoming a part of Golden's art scene, which is really incredible. It's a fantastic space. I've grown up in Colorado. I was raised in Aurora, and I've raised my kids in Boulder. And so it's really near and dear to my heart. I chase rivers and all the trails, and of course, you know, Golden is littered with incredible access to nature. And so a lot of my practice really centers on my curiosity for materials, for experience, how you move through a space. And so the work I create is all site-specific, right? I design for the location. And so the experience that you have is really central to what I'm introducing, right? So some of the art is responsive to shapes around it. Some of the art is more visionary, and I'm introducing something. And so what I have created, or what is coming for Golden, is this piece that is going to be suspended in the lobby of the new municipal building, which I just went to today. It's stunning. I don't know if you've driven past it recently, but as it's coming up, all the beams are now in, and these spaces that I've known about and I've seen in digital models, now I got to walk through it and really immerse myself in what we're creating together. And so the idea of this cloud garden is this swirl of energy. I feel like Golden is this place to connect with nature, and I'm really drawn to the movement of water, right? There's this motion that occurs in eddies where things are sharing a path but also finding their own. And so what I wanted to create for this piece was something that really felt like it was connected and it was part of nature, but it was also kind of enchanted with curiosity. And so the whole composition is this volume of shapes that really are suspended in this space. And so all of my work, I really try to make sure that it is something that you should be able to appreciate and infer your own ideas into. And of course, I've got my vision for what is driving the piece and the composition, but when you have this big volume. This piece is going to be 30 feet long, 10 feet tall, 12, 14 feet wide. It will command attention. It's all being made in heavy gauge aluminum sheeting, 3/8-inch plate. And so the idea is that it's illustrating a visionary approach, that Golden is guided by visionaries, that people are really committed to the town, committed to doing best practice, and that's obvious in all your infrastructure, in your trails, your pathways, your bridges. You can see it all over. I visit cities all over the country, and some stand out. And Golden is really well designed, and I think that's a reflection of the community, that they're supporting and encouraging people to stay true to making significant contributions. And this building that's taking shape is a pinnacle of our society, of community. And so the work I try to create, hopefully, is responsive to that. And so as I've gone into this, initially I start with a sketch of what I'm doing and creating visuals, and then it becomes more honed with engineers and the other designers in the space and the people that are going to be using the space. And so everything gets refined in concert with how people will inhabit the space. And so every project I do is different, and I hope that it's really deeply connected to its environment. And so to give you a little bit of context of some of the other work that I've done, I always want it to be a signature work of art. So everything I do is one of a kind. What I'm creating, this cloud garden for Golden, the new municipal building, is really, it's responsive to the environment. And I feel like that's my way of honoring the place and honoring the moment, right? When you look at time, you see the art of our time. And so right now we are encoding this world with a really fantastic moment, right? There's all this lineage in Golden, that there's been mining, there's been all of this exploration that's taken place. But when you dial it in to what's going on today, the amount of people that are here, that are doing things and thinking about things and raising kids, that velocity of this moment is really important. And so my design for Golden really centered on that pivotal moment of what we're doing today. What is taking place? What decisions are we making? What parks are getting planned? What kind of activities are we trying to weave into our world for our kids? And so that was really the cornerstone of that design. This piece is at this access point into nature. There's a new community out in Maryland, and the idea is a campfire. And so the piece is this swirling mass of 1-inch plate steel, 35 feet tall. It was a 30,000-pound piece that I built in my studio. I'm a certified structural welder. My background's in stone. I love materials. When you're figuring out each project, everything's got this wave of discovery. So even though I'm totally confident in what I'm doing, I still need to explore and develop a sensitivity to the material, to the ability to move it. Right? This project, I built it horizontal in my studio, and so I built this giant framework in my space. And as I'm building it, I'm trying to make this lattice work to suspend that top piece. And so I had my engineer, and I do this a lot, I'll have him work in tolerances, right? So not everything is measured and laid out. It is, I could suspend something 20 feet out off of this connection point if I have 14 inches of weld on both sides, 3/8 weld. And so I have these guidelines that I can work out, and a lot of times I like to work in this way, so it's an active process. I certainly have plenty of work that is, I have numbers and I have to set it and it's going to fit in this exact spot. But it's more playful to be in a space, and like the project I'm doing for Golden, there will be a lot of decision making as I'm going, right? So I'll hold things up and I'll suspend them. I've got a jib crane and a couple forklifts and a gantry, and so I'll like place like 4 or 5 objects in space and see if I like that composition. And sometimes I have to go out on a limb and I'll establish a few parts, and then it won't work. There'll be like a bunching and I'll have to cut it out. So this piece, I had to build this structure, and the idea was that it would have some kind of airy quality to it, that it would feel like swirls of a flame, but also be strong enough to hold the 15,000 pounds that are all the way up at the top, 35 feet up. And it was designed for hurricane force winds. And so, it's something that I really enjoy that. So the process of the design side is part of what I love about it, and then the execution of it, the fabrication of it. I am a design build guy. I love the fabrication, the handling of the material. When you're welding, you're fusing metals, and if you TIG weld, there's a few different types, but TIG welding, you have a torch, and so you have this really stable arc that's just producing a fantastic amount of heat. And so as you're adding material and you're melting the sides, so everything in this is welded together, there's a behavior of the material that your body develops a sensitivity to. And so as I'm welding, it's almost like I'm surfing this section of molten material. And so I'll do all of these welds that are perfect, structural welds, but there'll be one weld in 6 months that was like the really good weld. And so this project, I've actually, so Golden's kind of my, this stretch from here to Denver has been like my most established art corridor. I don't know if you've seen any of my other work, but I'm all along the West Rail line. And so this is on Sheridan. I've done these 3 birds that are on top, 100 feet up in the air. I've got another project that's down at Oak Street Station. And so I did these pieces, and everything I do it's intended to be, specific to the place. But when I presented it, they're like, "Oh, we love it, but you're doing boats? It's a train station." I'm like, I know, but there's something that just felt like, there's this array of these lights that establish this ceiling in the space. There's this whole field of lights, and so I was like, I feel like there's something going on at this level, and it's kind of the magic of getting to make art, is that I get to kind of tease things out that don't totally make sense, but you put it in these robust materials and you spend months developing it, and then it's like, oh, of course, yeah, there should be walking boats at a train station. And so each project I do, I want it to honor the site, and so I do that through an investigation of spending time there or walking through the area. I know Golden so well. I bike. I'm an avid mountain biker, and so Apex and White Ranch, and it's near and dear to my heart. It's 20 minutes from my house, and so it's something that I spend a lot of time doing. But each place I go to, I'm not like a huge horse guy, but this was an equestrian facility. And I felt like, to honor the space, it felt like something that really worked with it. And so I generated this piece that expanded on my use of materials and my ideation in space, and also really worked with the environment. Everything I do, I really try to make sure it's more correct for the space than anything else. I just did this project in Utah. They've got this fantastic mental health infrastructure. And so these people that qualify for this space could live there their entire life. And they've got pools, and they do all the therapies you could possibly have. And so it created a really narrow aperture for where I could work, and in terms of creating things that were, comforting. And so color palette became a very specific, thing that we had a lot of meetings on. And I wanted it to be right that there's been tests of like people that are, cognitively challenged and what works best. And so I did this whole series of pieces where these animals are instruments, and this is a trumpet fish, and I did a bongo bunny and a giraffe banjo, and it was a giant exploration in color. It's really an evolution in the work that I do, but I felt like it sat beautifully in the space. And so this is a project I just did in Waukee, Iowa, and I've been really, I don't know what it is, I've been enjoying these kind of hyper-mobile figures. And so there's, this, double-jointed arms, like 2B kind of figures. And I've been playing with that, and it's kind of a curiosity that I'll tease out in different ways. And so I have these undercurrents of what I want to do, but I really am like, I try to honor what belongs in the space. And so I did a fisherman and a dog walker that they might be walking a chicken. Started out a dog, but it was sparky all along, and then when I painted it yellow, I was like, oh, it's a chicken now. And a biker, and so I really feel fortunate to get to make art, and I think it's a reflection on the highest efforts in our world, that we should be sharing our heart, our vision, and to create platforms for people to do that, and seeing public art really invites people into the dialogue, because you're having art experiences out in nature. And so this is a project I did in Colorado Springs, a really underserved part of the community. And I started out, I had this idea because they really want a robust community engagement. I'm like, okay, well, we're going to do all these meetings. And so what I'll do is I'll have all these people design houses. What does it mean to do these houses? And I knew I was going to meet with like preschoolers, and I'm like, I'm going to get like dragon houses and tornado houses, and that'll be great. And we did all these workshops, and I totally got it. I got tiger houses and unicorn houses, and I went back to the drawing board. I'm like, none of these look right. None of it's translating through my sensibility. And so what I ended up doing is I ended up putting their art in the windows of these houses. And so it evolved. And so there's 20 people from the community that have art that is displayed in these windows of houses, which a lot of people were doing during COVID around our neighborhood, and I saw it all over. And I thought it was really beautiful that there's like, we're turning our public spaces, our private spaces even, into public art. So each project I do, I really try to dive into the materials. This is a composition where I did these 6 pieces that are all these sun creatures, right? So each one, that's a 20-foot by 20-foot core 10 person. And I have a snail that's like 10-foot by 12-foot. And so the dimension of shaping it and moving it and painting it and attaching it, I always try to hide all my hardware, have it connect to the ground really beautifully. I want the objects to sit in the space where it feels like they live there, that there's some type of, something unique occurred. Maybe there'd be some physics that are taking place that make the material behave the way they do. This is another project with extra elbows or backwards elbows and knees in a roundabout that I did in Bend, Oregon. You know, and each piece, I really hope that the community adopts it, that there's this sense of this is our work of art, and immediately people went out and put stuff on it, which, you know, I'm okay with when it's not permanent. It was like the first weekend, I was still there when it was installed, and people would, you know, put these leis around them, and it was, you know, it's like, oh yeah, they're all ready, they totally get it. I love that. And so everything I do, you know, this is an aluminum project. I really try to like push the envelope with the materials. The Golden project is going to be a complex project, mainly because I'm bringing this massive object into a relatively small, through a small opening, and getting it up into the sky. And there's things I don't know yet, and it excites me about the project. And so far, in the last 25 years of doing it, I do always find a way to make it work. You know, this project was really, so my wife and I have been working on this, on being in the arts for the last 25 years since we got pregnant. And it hasn't been the best financially for a lot of it, but this project, I did this sketch, it was kind of last minute, and I was kind of like, man, I do these things. And the way the project was stipulated, I didn't take it real serious. You know, every municipality's run totally different. There's no like boilerplate for public art. Every municipality comes up with different ways of doing it, administering it, managing it. And so they were like, oh, we have this budget and we want to do this stuff. And so for all the years, you know, we get a project and be like, oh yeah, we got a $40,000 project, we're gonna make money, and then it would like, you know, take 6 months to do, or materials would be expensive, and so it was like, neither of us looked that close at the funds. We were running a very great business financially, but we kept paying the bills, we kept working our way, but we were steadily working our way deeper into debt. And over the 18 years up to this project, we had kind of really amassed a lot of debt. And, you know, at each stage, it looks like, oh, you're coming out, and then, you know, you come a little less out each time. This project that we didn't take that serious totally righted the ship. It was like really well funded, and when I did the sketch, I was like, I think I could make that. And it ended up being somewhat easy to make, and when I drew the picture, there was like floating shapes in space. I'm like, that's not gonna work, but I just did a random sketch, and they came back, and there were 7 sites, and I figured they'd pick me for one, and they're like, we love it. I'm like, okay, which one? And they're like, no, all of it. We want all of them. I'm like, oh, yes. So this is a very dear project. I mean, we kept saying to each other, we're like, okay, well, if we get this far in debt, we'll like pull the plug. And then you like, get that far in debt, and you're like, you know, do we really want to do something else? And so we kept kind of just rolling the dice, and it did work out. I feel really fortunate. I grew up in a stone sculpting family, so I've been around artists my whole life. My mother started the Marble Institute of Colorado, and so I've been around working artists for forever, since I was, you know, my mom started carving stone before I was born, 4 years before I was born. She had her studio in our house growing up, and then she got a commercial space. And she's a really, you know, active artist, but I've been around all these artists that sustain, but most of them don't like get rich. I mean, most of them, if you get to just keep making art, that's success in the arts. And so we've been successful. We've stayed in it all these years. We've been full-time together working on it. And so we've been able to put these projects all around the country. This is a fun one. It wasn't fun to make, but it was it's fun having it in. It's a 17-foot ring. There's 8 of them rolling through the landscape. The idea was that there was like a giant that just rolled these rings, and so they go up and down this hill through a project that was an Army Corps of Engineer project. So there's all these like really tight rules of how I could work there, and getting a 17-foot object down the road, not easy. So everything I do, I try to like have a sense of discovery for myself and how the materials could behave, how composition could be generated. This project is in a roundabout, and it was for the Pro Cycle Challenge. And so the idea is, as you spin around it, they move, they juxtapose their relationship, and so it actually looks like they're in motion by your motion. And it's something I play with a lot in my work. So this one is in Commerce City, which I was kind of surprised that they went for, because I felt like it was kind of an environmental statement. You know, it's a kid with a big wheel and he's pulling a boat with a rain cloud. But I felt like it was, you know, it's beautiful. Like the object that's in the sky is, you know, 20 feet long, it's 10 foot tall, 14 feet wide, and it's a swirl of motion and energy and light. And so I think that you can introduce concepts that are potentially more challenging, but when you do it with like really good material that like kind of paves the way a little bit. And so, you know, Suncor Energy was there, and you know, and they loved it. And I feel like really good art is language, right? And we're trying to find ways to communicate with each other, and everybody has a stance that they're working through, and finding ways to bridge the gaps where we feel like we're part of a community is really important. And I think that public art does that really beautifully, that there's this, you know, unifying thing that even if there's a statement that I think that, you know, the idea of this kid pulling this boat, you know, it's making an environmental statement, but it's done in a way that I think is hopefully uplifting. I feel like our path to really connecting with each other is through inspiration. And so I appreciate the opportunity to share my vision, my thoughts, and my inspiration with you, and what I get to do with Golden as well. It's really an honor to get to do this.
All right, we will be coming back for Q&A. I really hope that when we get back, I'll get to see a banjo giraffe banjo, whichever thing. My life will be incomplete if I never see one of those. Get yourselves a snack or a beer and stick around for Q&A.
got a roving mic in the audience. Dr. Bryce has the mic, and make sure you raise your hand so she can come over and capture your question on the audio, and we would appreciate it. So let's get started.
I've got a question about your flame structure.
Yep.
That was built out of 1-inch steel?
Yeah, it's 1-inch core 10. So it's a self-weathering steel, 1-inch plate. And so it was rolled at a shop in Fort Collins, but then I built the whole piece.
That was my question. What kind of machinery did you have to bend and form?
Yeah, so a lot of the machinery that I utilize, I will have the heavy machinery done in shops that are running these big rollers. So this facility that could do that size has these rollers, and it's 3 rolls that are each like 14-inch dowels of solid steel on this giant hydraulic machine, and 2 bridge cranes to feed it in and out. And so I worked out digitally what the shapes I wanted, and I could kind of come up with shapes that I felt like would nest together well. And then I cut it, and then I took it to this roller, this guy that has stuff to do like big boilers, and while I was in there, I would make decisions on the fly, because as they shape, they take on an appearance. And so I've done enough of these rolled projects where I know kind of what I'm looking for, and sometimes I find things as it's happening, like, oh, I wanted that to have a 24-inch radius or a 24-foot radius, but it doesn't look right. The part doesn't look right, so I would keep rolling it until it gets down to 18. And so I'll do that with a number of the heavy-duty machines. Like, that's a $500,000 machine that I only needed for that project. And so I really try to keep my shop focused on the fabrication side. So I don't have a water jet, I don't have a big plasma table. I just have my welders and my saws, my hand saws, and I'm able to do most of this with that.
Okay, so I'm going to use Lucifer as an example, but have you ever had a piece of artwork that the community named something that was very unexpected to you?
I don't know if I've come up with, if I've come across names, and it might be because most of my work is really centered on being uplifting and inspiring. So rarely do I take on subjects that evoke the emotion that Lucifer has. I do too. I love it. You know, I think that you know, there's a place for art that is, you know, controversial, and I think there's something healthy in that, and I understand why some people don't like it. I personally think it's great. Artistically, it's great. The story is grim, but it kind of makes it awesome. You're like, whoa, it killed the guy.
So thank you for a very nice talk. We really enjoyed it, and we all believe that if we're going to get behind mere survival, we have to go to cultural things such as art. We were just talking today a little bit about inspiration and where the inspiration comes from. Like we can see Michelangelo talking about releasing the sculpture from the stone by carving away the extra parts. Where do you get your inspiration for this art?
It's interesting you mentioned the stone sculptor, because I really look at my practice in concert with stone sculpting. I was around art my whole life growing up, and when I started to use heavy tools, machinery on stone, that's what guided me into it. So I grew up around it, and it was like, I like to draw. I'm really creative. I had ideas for products and all kinds of stuff, but I didn't want to do any of that stuff. I wanted to bike and snowboard and play outside and be with my friends and go to concerts, and that sense of play really was central to who I am. And with the world. And when I started cutting marble, I took a diamond blade and I sunk it into marble, and I could feel the way the material behaved, the way it moved, and then I could strike it with a hammer, and I could watch the way that energy would transfer through the material. So really, my inspiration centered in the fabrication side of it. I just totally fell in love with how these materials behave, and this sense of alignment that I would get, that there would be a point where I would figure out that rock, because that stone behaves slightly different than the stone that was just 3 feet over in the same material, right? The way the crystals are oriented and the way it would cleave when you're striking it. And so there's this constant feedback for how you're interacting. And then that speed of process actually really works with our imagination, right? So I really am a huge advocate for stone sculpting. The idea that it's subtractive, right? That you're starting with something very specific. You have a block of stone that's encoded with gravity and chemistry and all this stuff, and you could kind of reveal it. You're striking it, and the way it moves, you're unearthing it. So you have this interaction, and then you're imbuing your own imagination. You're like, oh, a flower, a face, and it can keep changing. You know, it's limited, but it's infinite. I could make a flower, and then a face, and then back to a flower. You know, it just gets smaller. And so that was a deep inspiration that's really guided a lot of my process. And so often I'm like, well, how am I going to move this material? And every time you go to pick something up, finding that balance point, and then I want to pick it up and swing it into the spot. So I'm using different tools, and all of that keeps me really excited about the practice. And so I think materials are a big piece of it. And I worked with this Buddhist monk doing these contemplative gardens for a bunch of years, making these experiences, these spaces. And I studied with this guy in Japan, and their approach to like a tea garden, they would introduce all these forms and shapes and patterns, and it's all about altering your consciousness. And so you could walk through a space, and the density of the foliage and the pathway, and that you would have to kind of squat a little to get in, all of that is really about the experience. And so those are kind of big pillars in my inspiration.
That's a great answer.
A slight detour back to Lucifer, and not to beat a dead horse, but have you had a piece try to kill you?
I have had some dangerous moments. I was helping roll a stone at one point, and I was operating the forklift, and there was like 5 of us around, and we're standing up this stone that was probably 25,000 pounds, and as we're picking it up, I like just paused for a second. It was already on the chain. I looked around, I'm like, oh, everybody, put your glasses on. Like, this is a moment. This is one of those like safety glass moments. In general, I'm really good about it, but I would just like took a moment, and a few seconds later, the hook broke, and the block fell onto the forklift, and the hook couldn't be found. I don't know where it went. It launched, and so I have seen dangerous things. In general, I'm really methodical. I've been around it so long, and so I'll pick up giant weights. I've got this really big project coming where I'm starting with a 60,000 pound stone. And so when you go to pick something up like that, there's this loaded energy. And so a lot of times the big objects, when they're in motion, is the most dangerous point. And so you pick it up and you check the balance, and you get it a quarter inch off the ground. And so if something goes catastrophic, it happens low, and so you kick it, push it, check it. In general, I haven't had many incidents. I was working I did these giant arches for Oregon overlapping arches. And I had them hot dip galvanized. And I don't know if you've ever been to the galvanizer in Denver, but it is a scary place. They've got these 45-foot long vats of acid, 8 foot deep, 8 foot wide, and pools of acid, pools of 700 degree zinc, and it's gruff people that feel like if you said the wrong thing, you might end up in the pool. And I dipped the pieces, and we were loading them, and so I hired the truck driver, and the truck driver showed up, and we put it on, and we were stacking them to send them out to Oregon, and he lowered it down on the forks. Well, the forks were on a sling, and he backed up, and when he backed up, it caught the sling. The sling didn't just slide off, so it caught on the sling, and it yanked the whole part off, which is 20 feet long. I don't know if it's in here, I'll find it. And the trucker was standing between the forklift and the truck, and when it came off, everybody moved together, and it landed right where he was standing, and that definitely would have been a not so pleasant thing. So I've had some. This project, I was installing the one in, I think you're on, yeah, the one with the 2 people inside. I brought it in, and I had 2 lifts, and I was bringing it up at the station of Boulder, and so that piece is 20 feet tall, and right next to it is an escalator that goes down like 3 stories, and we were in the construction, and the GC came over, because we had put it up, and when we slid it up, it was really difficult to get up, but we got it stood up in the space on these 2 lifts with a crossbar, and it was just like an inch short because the hardware was already cast in place. And I'm like, we're going to have to pull this out, pull the bottom out, and lower it, and change the slings and everything else. He showed up and just bear hugged it and decided he would figure it out for us, like totally jumped in the mix, which is an absolute no-no. And he just grabbed it and he put it on the bolts, and he did it, but when he did it, the hook unhooked, and it was just balanced. It just landed, and we were able to get the nuts on and everything else, but it had totally come off the hook in this process. And so those are some of the more scary moments that we've had, but in general, haven't really had many issues.
Is there a typical length of a project, and how many do you have going at a time?
So the typical length of the project often is a 6-month turnaround. This project that I did in Boulder, there's 7 of them. It took 5 years, but that was through all the meetings. It was an RTD project. There was City of Boulder. There's all this infrastructure that went with it. But often fabrication centers around 6 months. I could do projects sometimes faster, but more often than not, it's a 6-month process.
And how many do you have going at a time?
It depends. Every year is a little different. Right now I have a lot going. I feel really fortunate. Typically I'll do 4 or 5 projects in a year. I usually keep 2 to 3 assistants going the whole time. I run the space in my studio. As I scale up, sometimes I've had more. Right now I have 3 assistants going, and in my shop I have another 3 going in Marble, and I'm about to start doing some work through another shop in Grand Junction. So the scale right now is really big, and I feel really fortunate, but it fluctuates. So throughout the years, I've done 4 or 5 projects. I probably average 4 a year.
Thank you. Your artwork is just amazing. Really think you have an enormous talent. Question about what's being installed here in Golden. Suspended from the ceiling. Is there any kinetic activity? Do any of the pieces move relative to any of the other ones?
do not. I often shy away. I think as a stone sculptor, oh, I'm trying to go to the top, see if I could go back to it. I often want things to appear to move. I want things to have presence in 100 years and in 500 years. I've got that kind of stone sculptor in me, that we're not only saying something important in the moment, but I wanted to say it in perpetuity. And so I do that with really permanent materials. Almost all my metal is aluminum, and it just won't break down the same way. Whether it's a marine environment, I really love stone. Often I try to use subdued color palettes just for longevity. In this case, I'm able to do something that's much brighter because it's not going to have all the direct sunlight. And so introducing something that's a little more vibrant, I think, carries that weight. But the idea is that it does have motion to it, right? That there's this sense that as you're moving around it, all those layers and the depth really will make it keep moving, right? So it does take on a kinetic feel without the potential issues for failure. So often, kinetic pieces tend to be short-lived, 20 years, 25 years. Those bearings are going to go, and the people that put it in probably aren't going to be the same people that maintain it. And so I tend to err on the side of permanence. And so, water features tend to be really problematic, and movement, with dust and bearings, it only lasts so long. So.
I really can't get enough of viewing your work. What I'd like to do is have a day trip where I could go throughout Colorado and look at your places, and for that matter, as you travel, know throughout the nation where your work is, so you could easily take a side trip to see it. Where can I get that kind of information? I looked at the web, and I don't think it's there.
Yeah. Gia and I had discussed trying to make like a map of where all my work is, but we hadn't generated that yet. But it's something that I'm an open book, and I help a lot of other artists. I believe in trying to interact, and so all the emails I ever get, I respond to, or phone calls. And so if anybody was ever going somewhere or wanted to see some stuff, I certainly could give some insight into where my favorite pieces are. I love them all differently, but there's some that I'm like, I really want people to see this piece. That the rings in Richmond, I think just the scale of it. Over the years, I would do projects. As an aspiring artist, I would do things. There'd be like, the public art stuff. They kind of have this entry level, $10,000 budget. And so I'd do like some $10,000 budgets, and it was like really awesome. And I got my foot in the door, and then $30,000. Well, at a certain point, like, well, you're at 30, but to get a $75,000 project, I kind of had to do a little above and beyond. And so I had a handful of projects where I did, like that Richmond project was a $200,000 project, which was totally not a $200,000 project. I had $50,000 in materials and $50,000 in foundation work. And so it was really like a $500,000 project. And so like for the scale of it and how it sits in the landscape next to the James River is really something special. And it's like this heavy industrial city that's on this tidal section of Class 5 rapids, half-mile wide river. It's really like an impressive environment. And you have these little, what look like almost delicate rings in the landscape, but they're not. They're like massive half-inch wall, core 10 tubing, 12-inch by 12-inch tubing. And when you roll tube, it smashes it, right? So if you send it through those 3 dowels and it puts the arc in it, when you do that, it'll squish it to 11 inches by like 12 inches. It like totally deforms it. makes it really difficult to put it together, but just the energy and everything that went into it, that's one of the ones that I really, I love, the city, but of course, you know, the West Rail line, I think I didn't get down to the other pieces that I've got, but I've got one at Federal and also on Perry Street. I did a big stone piece. So you saw the boats. I think I've got them in here. So this is in Perry, which is also on that same line. And you know, when I got to do this project, it was I was trying to get a quarry to generate these stones, and they didn't have it anymore. They used to have these 8 foot by 2 foot by 8 foot by 8 foot by 2 foot stones, and I couldn't source it. And so I went to a different quarry and spent a bunch more money to get, this is a dolomitic limestone instead of a limestone, but I do love this piece too.
Hi. Can you tell us a little bit about the timeline of the piece that'll be in the municipal built, you know what I'm saying, and and in what part of the timeline of the structure it will be installed?
That was a big subject of today's meeting. So I went through the building today with Steve and the whole team, which you have like amazing people running your projects. The Golden team are like really great, like totally present and totally like working with me. I've done projects before where, you know, it's like they're trying to trip you up. And they're like, oh, you don't know this code and that thing. And they were like totally forward facing, like their eagerness to make it a success and integrate it. And so this is a very complex integration. If you see, most of my work is out in landscapes and, you know, like at the train lines are some complex stuff as far as digging next to power lines, but more often than not, it's relatively straightforward. And so today, there's this really stout floor that's in, and the whole space, that whole lobby is wide open and perfect to just slide a giant object in, but that's not when I get to install. They want to bring in the floors, and all the glass is going to be in, so I have to slide this piece into an 8 foot 5.25 by 5'10" doorway. And I'm hoping, we're working on coordinating things today, that I can do it before the desk goes in. So there's a major floor in, but then they're putting in this 18-inch, I've never heard of, but there's like this air space that they're putting in below the next floor. And it's been engineered for the load that I would put on it with the lifts and everything else. So if I could get it in October, it would be great for me, but they don't really want it then. They're leaning more towards next spring. And so we're discussing that right now. And I think they saw, I would like to bring it in as big of an object as possible. I just think the elegance of hot connections, welded connections, where you grind it and it becomes one cohesive object, is something I'm really drawn to. And how you make a composition that is all these perfectly shaped forms that nest beautifully. The more it's welded together in one object, the better. Of course, this piece has lots of parts and different colored pieces that will be attached and suspended independently. But that big white shape, this kind of double eddy, figure eight, that is a major structure. So I'm hoping to keep that as one big structure, but the limitation of the aperture I have to work through will guide the design. And I don't ever look at that as like a failure. I'm really curious about it. When I've had things come up and it's like, oh, this is our construction window. This is how you have to move it. it entices an exploration. And I find that as long as I'm committed to it, that I find ways that if that whole piece had to be cold connected using hardware, that there are ways to do it and still have it be elegant. It's just maybe not my first thought. And so it'd be a matter of, transition shapes and introducing materials that help support that composition. But timing-wise, I think, most likely it'll be October, November from what I gathered today, but I need to give them stuff and they need to give me stuff, and so we'll see how they'll, amalgamate.
All right, so next month, Steve Friesen, the Galloping Gourmet, will be here to talk about his cookbook regarding the eating and drinking in the tradition of Buffalo Bill. We like to mix it up around here. We also begin and end with gratitude, and we have this gift of gratitude